Helo, mae croeso cynnes I Mountjoy yma yn Sir Benfro I o'r fferm yn fyw. A warm welcome to you here from Mountjoy here in Pembrokeshire on Demo Farm Live. We're very sorry that we can't host a live event for you. It's a cracking evening here in Pembrokeshire. But as you can see, I think we're doing our very best to hopefully bring you to the farm as best as we can. So we've got most of the event will be in English, but if you want to ask questions in Welsh or English, you're more than welcome to on the chat feature. Mae rhagfyr drafodaeth heno yn y Gymraeg, yn y Saesneg, sorry. Mae croeso chi ofyn cwestiwn yn y Gymraeg neu y Saesneg ar y chat feature. So I would encourage you as much as I can, please, to make sure that you put those questions over on chat. So if you're on an Apple device or on a tablet, there's a question or a Q&A feature there at the top. So make sure you put your questions through. We want to make sure this is as suitable to you as the audience, so that we're on the right track, so we can answer the right things that you want us to answer this evening. As you can see, we've got an audience of about 360 cows in the field here, and we've got quite a few contributors to this evening's event as well. So we've got Simon Pitt, our technical officer, that's work with the Hannahs in setting up the project areas, one of our demonstration farms. We've also got Fferm Pearson from HDB, who's a geneticist, and she'll explain to us the best use of genomics and how then to access that data. We've also got Chris Duller, who I'm sure many of you are very familiar with Chris. As a grassland specialist, we're tapping into his experience and wealth of knowledge in setting up a project here to reduce the amount of nitrogen we're using on the farm. We'll also have an update from Susie Morgan on the work that Farming Connect are doing and the support that's available through Farming Connect. But I think first of all, if I can introduce you to the stars of the show, I'd like to welcome you to Will and Hannah and the family as well. We've also got a cat here somewhere. So we're all here, and I'm really pleased to introduce Will and Hannah, who are one of our demonstration farms and been incredibly involved with the project so far. Yeah. So we've been working with the Genomics project and the Grassland project that we'll discuss in a while now. So first off, we'd just like to introduce you to the business as a whole, really, in terms of size and number of cows and some perhaps of your business objectives. So if we start off with the type of farm that we have here. Yeah,
so we're late spring calving herd. We tend to calve outside, and we're running about 360, 370 cows. We're on our grazing platform is around 350 acres, and we're on a total area of about 500 acres. The farm mainly consists of sort of clay loam. We have some heavy clay soils, and then we go across onto shales, which are easier. And we get about 1,250 mil of rain a year, so we're fairly wet, but not too bad.
Yeah. As you can see, the topography here, we're on the top of the hill, looking down over mainly the grazing paddock, which is just behind us here. So I think the audience hopefully can see the type of cows that you've got. Yeah. If you can just sort of explain perhaps some of the genetics that you have behind your herd.
Yeah. So the history really is originally it was a Holstein base about 15 years ago, and then Dad really bred in more British Frisian, including a couple of Montbelliards. And then since I've been back around 10 years, we've been much more focusing on the New Zealand Frisians, which are more of a grazing type Frisian. They're a bit lighter, and they have better constituents as well. So yeah, we've been doing that. And at the moment I'm using a mix of New Zealand and British Frisian just to try and not go too small. We've very much stuck with the black and white Frisian as well, just for bull calf values as well, just so we don't go too Jersey or too small really. Yeah, we're aiming for a cow which can do about 6,000 litres, just over 500 kilos milk solids, off around.
Quite a robust cow then. That's, quite an easy care.
Yeah, that's it. I suppose we feed about a ton of concentrate, and we'd do the majority of it off grazed grass, and we'd do some of the back end off silage. We dry the whole herd off at the end of January.
Okay. Looking at some of your herd or business performance, you're in the top 25%. in cost of production, so your cost of production is particularly low, which is a credit really. So how do you go about? So obviously that's something that you've established, and you've built your business, and obviously the cows around that.
Yeah, that's right. We always, as we're quite highly geared as a business. We have there's a fair amount of debt and stuff running. So to service that, we have to be profitable, and so we're always looking for ways to work with nature and work with what we've got here on farm to the best of our abilities. And the main thing we've got here is an abundance of grazed grass, and we've got a good platform. So we try and really utilise that, which really helps keep costs down. The more that we can get the cows to work for us and go and get the food and bring it back to the parlour in milk, then that's always a winner. You know, we don't have to ship too much forage in, or ship too much manure out and dung out.
So your grass growth, it's obvious that there's plenty of grass here, particularly at the moment.
Yeah.
So in terms of the grass growth, it's been pretty good over the season, except perhaps when it was particularly dry.
Yeah, it's been fairly good. We for a bit we were thinking it could be a very interesting summer, sort of towards the end of May, but it's really come now, and it's almost been like a second spring. It's really suited us actually. The grass growth has really come well just as we've gone into AI, and we've had cooler temperatures, which is great. So it feels like the service period has gone really well. We're in about week 5 now of AI, and we're seeing about 20% come back to us, which we're really pleased with.
So with the business objectives and perhaps personal objectives as well, what are the key things that you focus on the business? I mean, are you going to expand the herd? What's your key ambition?
So really my key ambition is just to be sustainable and to run an enjoyable business. And I suppose we've got, so it's me, my dad, and Michael, my brother-in-law, who's full-time here. So there's 3 of us full-time. So that's supporting 3 families, and then we've got a couple of part-time guys. So I'm aware that we want to be able to support that network of people, and we've got to have this business at a size that can do that. But over that, it's more just making sure it's sustainable for the cows and for the people working here. So at the moment we're quite comfortable on land. We've been very fortunate to have land come in fairly recently over the years. But probably our main pinch point at the moment is parlour. You can just see now there's some cows which are waiting 3 hours morning and night to be milked, the ones who are last through, and that's more stress than we really want to put on them on their feet. So that's probably the next thing, is to maybe address that and try and shorten milking times a bit for the cows really.
Yeah, I'm sure that sustainability message is going to resonate with many farmers, whether it's for the staff that you have and you're personally looking after the farm, and also the cows and land as well.
Yeah.
So I understand that you keep over 100 heifers a year.
Yeah.
But considering that your replacement rate is at 15%, which is particularly low, essentially you'll probably only need about 60 cows a year. So why do you keep your replacement rate or your replacement heifers so high?
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is we're in a very high TB area, and although we haven't lost huge numbers of cattle to TB, we've been fortunate. It's always on the back of our minds that we could lose a large number of cows, and to have a good backup of heifers coming through is always something which is quite reassuring, just so you know you're not going to suddenly drop numbers hugely. So that's probably the main reason for rearing a lot of heifers. I would like to rear less. The other thing is we quite enjoy selling any cows which come out of blocks. So although our replacement rate is quite low, we will sell if we get the chance, and we have too many heifers coming in. We're quite happy to sell some cows and shorten our block a bit. And other farmers, those just out of block cows, they're still good cows, and we find they sell quite well.
So you've got a good reserve there if you absolutely need to tap into.
Exactly.
And perhaps that leads us then into the ability that you have through Genomics to select those specific cows.
Yeah.
So I know that you've been working with Simon, my colleague, in developing sort of the options for genomic testing and grassland management. So those are 2 key projects that we're working with you on.
Yeah.
So if we'll pull in Simon into the conversation. So the idea there is sort of if Simon can sort of explain from his perspective, or from Farming Connect's perspective, the setup of the project, and then we'll perhaps ask you a bit more about your perception of genomics and how you can best use that technology, and what the farmers can learn from using that technology, particularly on a commercial grass-based herd. Yes. So if we go over to Simon now.
Good evening, Noswaith dda. Thank you, Dewi. Yes, just a bit of background really to the project. Embracing genomic technology to breed replacement cows. So, as is the case with all our 18 demo farms, they've all been through a baseline report. If you like, it's a kind of business stroke financial health check, if you like. In Will and Heather's case, at Mountjoy, the report showed the business to be in very good health. Farm ticked the majority of KPI boxes, with the business performing in almost all in the top quartile. There were very few areas highlighted in the report for improvement, because the Hannah family had done a thoroughly good job of almost all aspects of what they do, which is a credit to them. Where issues have been identified, these are reasonably modest in financial terms compared to the overall performance of the business, apart from the impact of measures to drive milk solids output, which is very profitable. So we looked at other potential options were considered: silage making, timings, using potentially some silage additive, becoming part of a feed group to reduce feed costs, make better use of manure in the slurry, to use less fertilizer and more accurate spreading of fertilizer. So hence the desire, really, with the benefit from driving milk solids, was to go down the testing genomic females within the herd. So Will and Heather's milk contract is based on a milk solids contract, and by driving milk solids positively from 500 to 520 kilos of milk solids per cow, this would enhance the bottom line by approximately £24,000. Mountjoy's average milk solids for the whole herd last year was 496 kilos of milk solids. That's lower than perhaps expected, as there's a significant number of heifers in the herd, and it's closer to 500 kilos of milk solids for the mature cows. So how the project was set up, so back in 2019, December 2019, we genomically tagged 95 R2 heifer calves. The tissue samples were then sent to Cogent, who in turn sent them to American labs for analysis, and the results came back at the beginning of March. The results get sent to the HDB, who convert them into PLI, which is essentially an all-year-round index. However, Pearson has kindly converted those into SCI. It's important that genomic data is sent back in the right index in order to make management decisions back on the farm, so that calves that don't meet the required traits are sold before weaning and avoiding unnecessary expense. I think the picture's now coming up of the genomic testing that we did, the applicator, the tissue samples you've just seen. Will's breeding objectives require certain particular traits. In particular, he was looking for more weighted fat and protein, positive fertility, positive locomotion, body depth and width, and an ideal cow weight of 520 to 540 kilos. Genomic data has traditionally worked better on all-year-round high-yielding Holstein herds, simply because there's a significantly greater set of data recorded for heifers and cows throughout Europe, North America, and Canada, with greater collaboration between those countries to develop a large reference population. Were more spring calves to record, and consequently more daughters from grazing type heifers in the system, more daughters of grazing bulls in the system, then the reliability of data would also improve for male and female genomic evaluations. Will and his desire to genomically test heifers is a rare commodity, as so few spring calvers are actually milk recording, never mind genomic testing. Consequently, he may be a little bit disappointed that the heifers bred from established grazing type New Zealand and Irish Frisian bulls don't rank as well as he'd hoped, with the results putting Mountjoy's 95 R2s in calf heifers average within the top 25 of SCI, 25% of SCI for all young stock in the UK, regardless of the system. Were it not perhaps for Will using QMMS as opposed to NMR or CIS, then ease of data and parentage information moving from the recording service would have been easier, and possibly it's the only downside exacerbated by recording systems that don't actually talk to each other. Running this project and projects of this nature at demonstration sites is perfect in that it allows us to try something different, as is the case at Mountjoy, so that others potentially can learn from the experience. Many spring calving herds don't have enough accurate data on parentage to improve reliability of the reference population. And as herds stabilise in numbers after expansion plans have been set, then improving individual cow performances is the next natural, logical step to increase kilos of milk solids per hectare. In the meantime, and there are more reliable genomic evaluations for SCI. Weighing cows and comparing their weights to their production can offer greater insight into the cow's value and efficiencies within the herd, and form the basis for breeding and keeping replacement heifers on the best cows ranked on kilos milk solids against live weight that lie within Will's accepted calving pattern, cow type and size. Back to you, Dewi.
Great, thank you very much, Simon. That gives us a good insight really to the setup of the project and how it's been developed here. And I'd just like to echo a few of the comments you've made there. That Will and the team here are really pushing the boundaries, which is a great example really for a demo farmer to be a bit of a trailblazer, if you like, but they are certainly trialling and trying to push the envelope a bit. So we certainly appreciate that, and hopefully other farmers as well will learn from that experience. And just to put in context, it's not a pedigree herd where you have a lot of depth of information, that genetic information. So it does take a bit more to collect that data.
Yeah.
Simon, you also mentioned the milk solids figure to increase from 500 to 520 in case to 24k, which is quite a substantial jump really, and perhaps one of the key drivers in going for genomic testing and getting that data for the individual cow themselves. So from your perspective, does it add value to your herd? Is it something that you've...
Yeah, I think there's huge potential with genomics. It's very early days for using it on commercial herds, as you've said. It's quite challenging in some ways. The actual tag and test is very straightforward, and you get sort of 60% reliability off that, which is great, and that gives you a really good snapshot of what a heifer, the herd potential might be. To up that, the bit that we probably struggled with more as a demo farm was trying to up that to more like 80%, where you're bringing in the parentage data and the sort of the sires and then the grandsires, and that's actually quite hard on a big herd to try. And if that data is just in paper form, or not even necessarily even in paper form, trying to draw all that together is quite tricky. And then also when we were trying to draw that data together and then compile that with recording programs, because we record 4 times a year for milk solids and constituents and yield, and so to compile that was probably the most challenging bit, and I actually think probably at the moment where we are is probably more suited to just doing tag and test. Getting the simple snapshot is the spring's a really busy time for us, so it's not like we've got loads of time to go trying to input other data on top, but I think as a snapshot then it's really useful, and we can breed. Well, we'll know then that we are possibly selecting the best ones, because we do tend to always have a surplus of heifers which we sell on, and so if we can select the very best and then sell the other good ones, then
that's a line I've heard quite a few times before. Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's fair, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what would success look like? So if we're using all this genomic data, and you're developing your herd, what would success look like? What's your key ambition with using that data then?
Yeah, so I suppose for us success is just having more efficient cows which produce milk solids, produce more milk solids off each off a similar off grazed grass, and then I suppose you're just hitting that maximum efficiency. It's just another tool in the arsenal to add a bit more on, basically, I think. And I think there is value in it. It's
will you be aiming for an individual cow gain, or is it a herd gain that you'll be focusing on?
Yeah, so typically as a sort of a commercial like grass-based dairy farm, you're always looking as a herd value, but no, it would be individual as well. Because we record 4 times a year now, we do actually scan over and pick out the best cows, and we're hoping to, through this we're going to weigh the cows and we're going to score them on a kilos milk solids basis, and so it'll be very interesting to see how that lines up with the genomics. We'll really get a good feel for how accurate the genomics been. We've genetically tested the heifers which were calved in this year, which are in the herd now, and they'll be recorded this year, so we'll be able to, at the end of this year, we'll get a really good picture of how they compile.
And you've had training through Farming Connect for AI, so you do all your AI work yourself, which I guess adds value and improves on timing as well. So how does that improve your business? Yeah,
no, that's been great. So I did an AI course which was funded by Farming Connect about 5 or 6 years ago, and since then, I've done all the AI, which is great. It means that as we're milking in the morning, as we sort cows out, once we're up to sort of 5 or 10 cows, I just go out and serve them. The cows hardly have to wait. They're not waiting around getting stressed, waiting to gather them all up for one AI man. It also means I can cast an eye over the cows and I can pick bigger bulls or smaller bulls, or bulls with different traits which I think will go across different cows. It gives me the flexibility to do that, which is really good too. I think it's good. Like no one knows their cows like themselves.
And
it's nice.
You live with them, and
that's it. Some cows have got some particular trait which you would quite like to breed out, and it gives you that choice quite easily to. It's good. It's been really good. Yeah.
And you've got other members of the team as well that's going to benefit from that.
That's
training
it.
Shortly.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law Michael, he's full time here, and we'll put him through an AI course now once COVID's over.
Yeah.
And then he can help me out. Then he can do the same as what I'm doing, and that'll be really good to give us a bit more flexibility. It's a bit of a tie at the moment, being the only person AI.
So and you've done foot trimming training as well as first aid. So that's benefiting hopefully yourself and the herd as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, me and Dad both did foot trimming, so that's been great. It was good. No, the 80% funding is great. It sort of gives you the impetus to go and do these courses, which maybe otherwise you might not, because they seem they're pretty expensive otherwise.
It's definitely taking, isn't it? And it's to upskill yourselves and the industry. Simon, if we come just back to you for a second, just to cover off some of the next key milestones. So what's coming up next in the project, and what other farmers can hopefully learn from us in doing this project here.
Thank you, Dowie. Yes, next stages will be a report into the results from these R2 95 R2s, and then once we've got that, we'll also have obviously a second set of data for the heifer calves that Will has tagged this year's calves, and of course by the end of December, when the end of their first lactation for the R2s will come through, we'll be able to look at that data and compare that to the genomic data to see how well they've done as well.
I'll put plenty of layers on.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks very much. So there's plenty to look forward to then. So those updates will be available on our website, and also we'll be releasing stuff on Facebook and Twitter and social media, so you can keep an eye on updates on those projects. We'll also be including information in the technical publication that we share on a bi-monthly basis. So just to provide a bit more context and a bit more information on genomic testing and genomic technology, we can now introduce you to Fferm Pearson from AHDB, who is the geneticist and the manager of the genetics and the genomics at AHDB. So Fern, if you'd like to explain a bit further about the technology and how we can best use that information.
Thanks, and good evening, everyone. As Dewey said, I'm going to talk to you guys a bit more about genomics, and hopefully kind of answer maybe any questions that you guys have. So the plan for this evening is really background to genomics, how it works, and then also a little bit of insight into how to use the tools that AHDB provides for selecting your sires and dams for your next breeding season. So first of all, genomics, the very basics of it, it's the process of predicting genetic merit of an animal based on their DNA information. And that just gives us more information at an earlier stage of life to make those breeding decisions on. So we do this by using markers along the chromosome, and those are called SNPs. And currently we use about 80,000 of those. In the UK, we introduced genomics in April 2012. And that was for Holsteins, and we did this, as Dewey's already mentioned and Simon's already touched on, with collaborations with other countries around the world. So we share our reference population with the US, Canada and Italy, and that means that we've got about 30,000 genomically tested daughter-proven bulls that we can base our genomic evaluations on. And that's one of the largest reference populations in the world, giving a higher reliability to those proofs. In August 2016, we released genomics for Frisians. They run through the same reference population as Holsteins, so we can run the crossbreds between these two breeds. Ayrshires, Jerseys and Guernseys then followed in April 2017, and these are in separate reference populations, so we can only run pure animals through the genomics at this level. So there's two different ways that you can be using genomics in your herd. The first one is selecting bulls for your herd. I'm sure most people are aware of the young genomic bulls that are available. And the benefits of this is that you shorten the generation interval, and that increases the genetic gain you make in that generation. And in a nutshell, it's bringing superior genetics to the market sooner. So that's one way of using genomics in your herd. Another way, which is the main method that we're going to be focusing on tonight, is using it to identify your best and your worst genetics in your young stock before mating. And as we've already touched on tonight, those best animals can be used for your replacement dams. Ideally, maybe looking at using stack semen, so you're more likely to get heifers out of those animals. And those worst ones, they can either be sold or they can be bred to beef if you still need the numbers for your milking herd. And selling your worst isn't necessarily the worst for another herd. It could be the best genetics for them. So don't feel like you're fobbing off your worst on your neighbour, by all means. So how does it work? We've already slightly touched on the process, but I'll just take you through each step in the process in a bit more detail. So the first step, as you've seen through the pictures, we need a sample of tissue. So that's either an ear notch, which is the tag and test process that was used on Mountjoy farm, or there's another way of sampling with a hair root as well. Once you've sent that off to the lab, the DNA is then extracted from that tissue and a genotype is generated. So that's using a SNP chip. Once that genotype's created, it's then sent to AHDB, our partners up in Edinburgh, eGenes, for them to load up on their system. We then run the genotype through the genomic system, and that compares the SNPs in that genotype to the SNP key, which we've determined through our reference population. And as I've already mentioned before, because the reference population is breed specific, we can currently only provide genomic testing for pure animals. The US have produced genomics for crossbreds, and we're keeping an eye on how that rolls out before we look at maybe implementing something similar in the UK. But it is something we would like to work towards. Finally, once we've made that comparison, we then convert that information into UK PTAs. And so that includes production, health, management, and type traits. But you also get it on all of the economic indexes. So there's the profitable lifetime index, which is for the all year round calving herds, spring calving index for, as the name says, spring calving herds, and the autumn calving index for autumn calving herds. So that is available on all of the bases now. The final step is that we send this information back to the provider, so that company that you've tested through, but we also make it available through our herd genetic report, and that's where you can access it on those different bases. We send the information out on either the first monthly run that's available, and then it gets refreshed at every full run, so that's April, August and December, or if it coincides with a full run, you'll get it then as well. So really the way that it fits in is we've got the parent information because we need the parentage of that animal in order to run the genomic evaluations, get that DNA information from the parents as well. The genomic information slots in and enhances that information and builds on it. But then as the animal moves through her life, you then get performance recording from her and then also progeny performance recording. So really it then picks up the traditional way that we evaluate animals in the genetic evaluations, and it just adds that extra information at early stages of life. And because it goes through this traditional evaluation method, all the traits that we publish are identical to the ones that you see in the bull catalogues. And so there's maybe a few traits there that you might not see on traditional cows that are evaluated based on milk recording, just because they don't have quite enough information yet, but you can get them through genomics. So what this does based on reliability, as I've said, it gives us more information earlier on in life for those animals. So what I've got here is I've got a little timeline to show you the difference in the accuracy or the reliability of the proofs, and I'm illustrating that through the pictures on the right hand side. So what you'll see as we move through, so both animals are about the same. We've got about as blurry a picture of what their genetic merit is when they're birth, or at birth, when it's just based on parent average. Then once we genomically test the bottom animal, we've got a bit of a clearer idea of what she's going to be like, what genetics she's going to pass on, and whether we want to breed from her as a heifer dam, or whether we want to maybe sell her or put her to beef. That other animal that's not been genomically tested, her genetic merit's still quite fuzzy. We're not entirely sure what she's going to be bringing to the herd. Lactation 1, again, we're building on that information with that performance recording. Both animals have improved in accuracy or in reliability for their proof, but that genomically tested animal is still ahead of that non-genomic tested animal for clarity in how she's going to be performing and what she's going to be passing on to her daughters. And finally, lactation 2, there's still a little bit of an advantage there to genomic testing, but we are now getting that clearer picture for the other animal that's not been genomically tested. So it just helps to illustrate there just how much you can gain at an early stage of life, and at probably the most important stage when you're deciding which animals you're going to be breeding from and which animals are going to be passing genetics on down through the lines or down through the generations of your herd for making those decisions. So finally, I'm going to take you through selecting the sires and dams using AHDB tools. We've got quite a toolbox now, and so I'm only just going to focus on one tonight and really key aspects of that one. But I suppose the main point to make here is that when you genomically test, there's going to be no difference in how you make your breeding decisions than if you were using parent average information. You're still going to select those animals that have got the right traits for your herd and are going to enhance the aspects that you've already done well breeding into the herd, and also build up those ones that maybe need a little bit more attention. The only difference will be the confidence that you have in the numbers when you're making that decision. So first of all, the tools that we've got in the box. So if you're starting really from the basics, we've got tools that can help with identifying how many straws of semen you need, of what type, based on your herd requirements, and also help in identifying those traits that you really want to focus on with your next breeding season. The other next two are the herd genetic report, which we've already touched on, and the inbreeding checker. So these ones are available to milk recording herds, because this gives you the genetic information back on your animals. So we do require that flow of information through from the milk recorders in order to genetically and genomically evaluate the animals and feed that information back to you. And finally, we've got the available bull lists. So those lists have all the bulls that are being marketed in the UK, no matter what breeding company they're being marketed from. And that means that you can identify the best bulls to use on your herd, the ones that are really going to enhance the genetics that are already there and start addressing maybe some of the areas that are a little bit weaker. And that's available for everyone. So you can really start addressing the areas that recording on farm are identifying as tougher areas, even if you're not milk recording there. But for tonight, I'm going to focus on some key features within the herd genetic report. And as we've said, this is available to milk recording herds. So NMR, CIS and DL Farm, you'll be able to get young stock and milking animals in the report. QMMS, currently it is milking animals only, but we are working on developments to get young stock in there and hope to have that available by early next year. As I've said already, you get the genetic and genomic potential of every animal on the farm, and you can receive it on the PLI, the SCI, or the ACI base. You make that decision when you log into the reports. So what they offer is you to easily identify those strengths and weaknesses, genetic strengths and weaknesses in your herd, and start making your breeding decisions based on these. And it's also available to third parties such as vets, consultants and breeding advisors. So they'll have a separate access to your account. You'll have your own login details, but you can use that information to inform the decisions that you're having with these third parties on farm as well. So I thought I'd just show you the new AHDB genetics page for the herd genetic report. You can access it with a URL at the top. There's a lot of information here. You can log into the reports, request login details if you've not got a report already, but also try it out yourself. So there is a demo login there too. There's also information about how to use the reports and how to make the most of it with the fact sheets as well. So as I've said, I'm just going to focus on two key features of the herd genetic report for tonight because it's quite a whistle-stop tour. So the first one I want to bring your attention to is the benchmarking table. This is the second table you'll see when you log in. What you see here is that your herd is benchmarked against the national herds, and you're highlighted, each trait is highlighted by the yellow box. So this example herd that I've picked up have got their SCI in the top 10%, their fat and protein percentages in the top 10%, as well as their lifespan and fertility. So they're doing really well on those traits. The traits that they're maybe not doing so well in is their kilograms of milk, fat and protein, which is the 90%. But since these are spring calving herd, it may be that they're manufacturing, and so they are focusing more on the quality of the milk, so the percentages there, rather than the kilograms. So ideally, what you want to see here is your health traits moving up the table, and based on your contract, that will determine where you see your production traits. You can also look at your young stock and other lactations as well. So you can really get a good in-depth comparison against the national numbers there as well. The second one and final one that I'll be taking you through is the herd genetic report. So this is where you get that individual, so young stock genetic report, which you get that individual proof for each animal on the farm. It's ranked by the economic index that you've selected, but you can re-rank based on these arrows along the top. You can filter on specific traits to narrow down those animals that you want to select, and also choose which columns appear. So if you're not interested in fat or protein kilograms, you can get rid of that out of the table. It just helps to narrow down the data that's there. So the key point of this one, and as we've already touched on earlier tonight, is the reliability of these proofs. So you can see, hopefully, some of you might be able to see, those genomic tested animals have almost got double the reliability of the animal that's not been genomically tested. So that's double the confidence, hopefully, in those figures that you're looking at there and selecting those animals. So we've got inbreeding percentage there as well as a management tool on the farm too. So here I've applied a couple of filters along the top, and then I've re-ranked by protein percentage. to bring up animals that I'd be interested in. And you can see that I've actually selected some animals that meet my breeding goals that actually aren't genomically tested, and some that are genomically tested I've left out. So it just shows that by genomic testing, you just have that higher confidence. You won't be selecting everything that's genomically tested. You've just got that better idea. There's other features to the herd genetic report, such as the summary table and the herd sire list, but I'll leave you guys to investigate those a bit further in your own time. And do visit the HDB website for the breeding genetics part of it. We've recently launched it on the Blue website. We've got tutorial videos there and fact sheets on all of our traits that are available. So the web address is on the page there, and if you've got any questions for me after tonight, then my email address is available as well. But thank you very much, and I'll pass back to Dewey.
Thanks very much, and appreciate it. You covered a lot of information there in a short bit of time. So there is a reference there for people to have a look if they want further information. And I guess it just demonstrates the level of detail that is available per cow, so that you can actually focus on. Will's already mentioned that he's selecting the right bull for the right cow, which is really valuable for your herd, really.
Yeah.
And hopefully in doing this, it demonstrates the genetic potential in your herd from where you are now.
Yeah.
Although getting that data, I appreciate getting that genetic report is challenging, particularly for a commercial herd, but it does give you option of developing a herd.
Yeah, no, definitely, it does.
And Fern, you also mentioned the confidence in the data. So Fern, if I can just come back to you for a second. So that confidence level, could you just explain a bit more about the confidence level and sort of how farmers can use that data to select whether it's bulls or cows for future breeding?
Yeah, so the reliability is the kind of the amount that the proofs will change as we get more information coming through. So by having the genetic information or the genomic information along with the parent information, we can enhance the amount of data that's going into that evaluation. And then we can as more data comes in later on in life, we build up the reliability, but the proof is less likely to change up or down with that information. Whereas jumping from first lactation from parent average, you can tend to get a bigger swing either way because there's less information contributing that early stage of life.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Fern. So we'll, I think we've got some questions coming through now, and if I can just remind those of you are watching us tonight to send in your questions. We have got a couple of questions come through. Fruit Holsteins, apologies that I haven't answered your question sooner or addressed your question sooner. So Will, a couple of questions for you. Are you using just tail paint for repeat and or bulls? Cows look in very good condition, so a compliment there as well for you. So on the tail paints,
yeah, so we're on the cows. We just use tail paint. I really like it as you know, we apply it whenever we need to. It's easy to apply, and I like to write the date on whenever I serve a cow. Just put the date on and put the sire initial on as well, just so that I know when she is, and I know then when she's repeating, if she's repeating at the right time or if there's something strange going on. And then we do actually use the heat detection stickers as well. We use them on the R2 heifers. We like that because we're not able to top them up as easily, I suppose, so we just stick them on, and they're on a sync program, and then we can just pick them up over sort of a period of 5 days and get them served.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, and one other anonymous question we've got a couple of questions coming through now. One other is, how much milk do you get from grass?
Yeah, so we're probably just over 3,000 litres from grass, I'd say. About 1,000 litres from silage, and then probably, yeah, the rest would be off concentrate then. Okay. It works a bit like that.
You did mention earlier on that you vary your feed rates particular way if the weather is.
Yeah, that's it. We try and be quite flexible with our concentrate feeding. If you get a really wet day, we like to up the concentrate just on that day, or if you get a wet period, just try and up it. Just trying to balance out. The biggest challenge probably with having cows out is just getting the dry matter into the cows consistently. It's consistency. That's the beauty of the house system is consistency. Every day is got to be the same on feed. Whereas for us, if it's tipping it down, the only things we can do is maybe up the concentrate to say, from say like 3 to 5 or 6 kilos, and then we can put in a bit of silage maybe as they're passing out the parlour in really wet extreme weather. But it's just trying to balance out for these cows so they're not just having a day of just trying to really low dry matter, and that really can knock a lactation. So it's just trying to keep the consistency really.
Yeah, so there's no peaks and troughs as well.
Yeah,
so
trying to iron it out a bit. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. One other question from Food Holsteins. Will using Jersey, as using Jersey is not an option for you, would you use a bull bred from a housed Holstein all year round US herd based on a high pound spring calving index?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd be very wary of it, to be honest. Mainly because I want to use animals that have been proven to work in a system similar to ours. It's such a different system that I would worry about things like, these cows we require them to walk a few kilometers a day on tracks. I'd worry about the size of an animal like that, and I'd also just worry about how she would adapt to those extremes of just having to, our cows have to walk a long way and they have to have really good feet, and then size as well. To breed an efficient animal, you want an animal which really does a kilo milk solids to a kilo live weight basically, and as a dairy industry, we need to be more efficient. We're doing these climate checks and stuff, and so I would worry about the size of those animals, but there is some Holstein genetics within this herd, obviously, coming through. New Zealand has historically always picked the odd high genetic, sort of high milk solids Holstein bull, so such as Oman and stuff like that. So that is, there's a slight there, but I personally would worry about doing it straight off here. I'd probably rather use a proven one.
Well, I hope that answers the questions to Food Holsteins. If not, follow up with another question. Before we go on to discuss the grassland project, Rodri Jones has got a question. What's led to the decision to go late spring calving?
So basically we, initially when I was still in school, Dad went spring calving, and he went 1st of February spring calving, and we never had much infrastructure here. We were always quite low on sheds, so he was trying to calve outside, and calving outside in February in Pembrokeshire on a farm which has high clay content around where we're sat now, around the home, it is a no-go. And Dad had calved outside before that in the autumn. He'd had some autumn calves. He'd really like calving outside. So I suppose one of the main advantages of calving later is we calve outside. So this year was a great spring. We calved sort of maybe for the first 3 or 4 days we calved inside. We do have a shed we can calve inside now, but then after that everything else calved outside. So we would have calved over 90% of the herd outside. It's great. We move them every 24 hours onto a new piece of grass, so they're always calving on fresh clean grass. That none of them really calve in the same place, which is great. That's led to us having a sort of very low Yonis percentage in herd of less than 1%, which was unintentional, but that's an advantage of it. It's great on cows. There's none of the slipping. There's no you don't get the casualties you do with calving on slippery yards and stuff like that, or not calving on yards, but just moving cows about yards. And the calves really thrive calving outside. But we do have facilities. If it's really wet, then they have to come in onto bedded yards. You have to play ball with the weather. So that's a big advantage.
Did you do that many times?
Trying to think. There was one year when we did, not this spring. Last year I think we did about 30%. Inside. We do a bit of on-off grazing as well. Sometimes we'll have them out in the day for a few hours, and then we'll just bring them in to bed down then, and then we'll put them back out. So we do that. The other big advantage of calving a bit later is we have an even spring-autumn milk profile, which really suits our milk buyer. It means we don't get penalised for, like you'd expect for a spring calver, although actually, spring calvers aren't always penalised for spring milk because they actually tend to produce it later almost. But so our peak milk would be sort of July, August. So pretty much now as a herd we're peaking. So that's a big advantage as well. And so the only disadvantage, I suppose, is we have to milk into the winter. So we milk all the way till the end of January. But that's fine. I think actually to be a spring calver in Pembrokeshire, you do have to have pretty good facilities anyway for housing cows. So we've got them anyway. So yeah, it just works well for us. We really like it, and we really like calving cows outside. So
which is a good job.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if I can just encourage as well to ask those questions, you can see you get a lot of value from those questions, because Will's got a lot of information to offer. So please keep those questions coming. We'll move on now to the next projects that we're in the process of developing here at Mountjoy, and we're working with Chris Duller on this project. So we're trying to look at options to reduce nitrogen on farm, and I think that's going to be a key business decision for many farmers across Wales, with the changes in policy coming up in the next few months or so when it's all confirmed. So Chris, can you explain the project and what's been happening so far? So over to you. Thanks, Chris.
Good, yes. Evening, everybody. Yeah, we're going to spend 10 minutes just talking through nitrogen use. 2 apologies for tonight. 1, there's a graph, and 2, I'm not digging a hole. I'm sorry. I'm going to start off just with Will. He was keen to reduce nitrogen. Traditionally, they've been fairly high users. There's about 40 grams worth of fertiliser a year coming on farm. It's about 2 pence a litre in terms of his costs. The grazing platform has been getting somewhere around about 300 kilos of N. The farm average is closer to about 215 kilos of nitrogen. So there is, first reason, as Debbie says, is a business cost. So can we reduce those costs by buying in less nitrogen? There is also the environmental issues, both on a local basis. So Will is farming right next door to the West Clevi, which we know is having increasing issues with nitrate leaching and high nitrate levels in the water. There's also the wider global issue of nitrogen use. So for every kilo of nitrogen that we manufacture, we produce nearly about 3.5 kilos of carbon dioxide equivalent. So there's a greenhouse gas effect. So Will's current fertilizer use is about 43 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent a year, which is enough to fly to Florida and back 18 times. Or it's almost enough to have another child, Will. So the environmental impact of a child is about 58 tonne of carbon. Your fertiliser is about 44. So I can see why you want to reduce your fertiliser. You can have another one. So my immediate concern when everybody talks about reducing fertiliser is, well, hang on a minute, we might just grow less grass. So the good thing about fertiliser, nitrogen will increase how quickly my cells divide, how large my cells are in a grass plant, chlorophyll levels, protein levels. The graph I'm going to look at, the black line is basically looking at nitrogen response. So as I increase from 100 to 200, I will grow more grass, somewhere in the region of maybe an extra 3 tonne of dry matter. And that's a response basically of 30 to 1. So for every kilogram of nitrogen I put into the system, I grow 30 kilos of grass, dry matter, more. The black line is really where we want to be. The dotted black line just below it is an example of some fields which can just plateau. So when we get a good response to the first 100 kilos of that sort of 30 to 1 regime, the next 100 kilos, I'm down at maybe 15 to 1. And the last 100 kilos, really, I'm getting no benefit from. It's turning green, and that's about it. Every field is different in terms of its response curve. The red line, typically, that would be a field that's not a lot of ryegrass, maybe a bit of compaction. So I get less of a response. I've also got a lower starting point. So basically, if I apply no nitrogen, right over on the left side of the graph, on the poor fields, I might only grow 3 tonne of dry matter for nothing. Whereas as I move up in terms of soil quality and percentage ryegrass, I might grow 6, 7, 8. For the guys that are growing large amounts of grass, 14, 15 tonne of dry matter, most of those will be having a high starting point, 7, 8 tonne of dry matter being grown from soil organic nitrogen. And and then their response is going to be quite good for the first 2, maybe 300 kilos, and then we stop. My aim for Will is maybe to come back from this sort of 250-ish down to 150 kilos. What the project we're looking at is now dropping summer applications from full rate to half rate and 0 rate, just to look at the impacts on grass growth. In tandem to that, we want to go forward and look at a range of ways that we can improve his natural soil supply and maximise his response and minimise wastage. So the first part of anything we do is soil testing. So we encourage you all to get a nutrient management plan done, because that's a big impact on how all the organic nitrogen is released in the soil. Will's cows, there's 370 of them, all chucking in about 100 kilos of nitrogen a year into the soil. So we need to make as much of that as we can. We need to avoid all of the issues of soil compaction. There is slurry going into the system. Slurry is fine as long as we apply it in the right way at the right time of year, ideally with training shoe, drum bars, etc. The other area that Will's keen to look at is increasing clover in the sward. A lot of his swards already have quite a bit, but whether we can build on that so we've got an average of 20-30% in the swards. So they're chucking in certainly a kilo a day of nitrogen. So effectively in the summer, they can, in good health, run a grazing round. Now, at the minute, what we've done with the trial is to apply conventional applications of 30 kilos of nitrogen, so about 25 units an acre after each grazing, and then introduce a half rate, so only about 15 kilos, and a 0 rate. And the 0 rate's done really easy because we just put a plastic sheet on the ground, 4 meters squared, put a stone on each corner, spin your fertilizer out, pick the sheet up, and you have got a 0 application rate. I'm never brave enough to say, oh, let's do so many acres with no fertilizer. We try it and see the response. Will's just been out and measured, and on the sward that had no fertilizer, we've grown 350 kilos of dry matter less in the last 12 days. So there is a big drop down in terms of how much grass we grow. So we've only got a growth rate of 52, whereas the fertilized growth has been 70. At the minute, Will's demand is 55 a day, and we haven't achieved that on the 0N system. The half N system is only fractionally less than the full N. It's coming at about 71 as opposed to 79. So we're going to do that for the next 3-4 rounds. And okay, we're only saving 15 kilos per round. Doesn't sound a lot. If we do it for 4 rounds, 60k of N per hectare, it works out at just about £5,000. So the next step also, we'll look at soil analysis in the winter, because any savings we do make, hopefully will pick up in the amount of nitrogen that's sloshing around in the system in October. It doesn't slosh around for long, it disappears. So if we can reduce that autumn nitrogen residual, then we're going to have benefits in terms of water quality. The other side of things that we want to talk about really is avoiding the waste side of things. And in many ways, that's where the genetic side comes in. I want animals that are good feed converters. I want those animals to convert all my high quality grass into milk, because ultimately that's what we get paid for. So anything we do with the swards and the soils and the fertilizer needs to reflect in terms of our forage quality and our animal performance. So in terms of taking the project forward, there are dozens of ways that we can tinker with Will's system in terms of the rates and the timing as a fertilizer application, in terms of how he applies his slurry, in terms of the clover management in his sward, about avoiding compaction, about maintaining his phosphates and potash levels. Will's not bringing in much phosphate. Every year, about 20 kilos a hectare goes off in the milk tank. So recently, he's been looking at raising phosphate inputs to try and maintain the P indexes, and that maximizes response from nitrogen. So there's all these issues. And again, for all of you watching, pick one of the 12 I've put up there, and it's a start. If we can get ticking those boxes, 5 or 6 of those, then there's scope on every farm, I think, to reduce nitrogen back by maybe 50, 60, even 100 kilos without significantly hitting grass production. Okay, Dowie, how was that?
All cool as well.
Thanks, Chris. You just caught us studying one of Will's favourite cows there, and you were just mentioning that She's an old...
She's a British Frisian, yeah. She's a true British Frisian. She, I think she'd be a Quentin or a Tarquin or something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So thanks very much, Chris, and I think you're quite well known as Chris Digger Hole. So I assume you've been in that dig around here at Mountjoy. What's the soil conditions like here, and any top tips on the soil structures and how to improve it?
We have to be very careful where we dig on the farm, Derry. There's a huge change in soil type. So we've got some really nice, well-drained clay loams, Denby series, and then we go up to some bit stickier stuff. There is some compaction issues on an extended grazing herd that are still tramping around in November. There are going to be compaction issues. So we'll just have to be a little bit careful about picking paddocks on awkward days where the cows go. And on his farm setup, he's got a choice between his heavier land and his lighter land, and it's just managing that appropriately. I think the bigger risk at the minute is his phosphate issue.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think that's a fair point, really. That making sure that your phosphates are at the right levels is critical, really.
Yeah, no, that's something we've been aware of, for the last couple of years, and we've been, making sure we spread fertilizers just as we do, sort of little and often as we go around, following the cows, sort of spreading once a week. We just make sure that's got some phosphate in it, as well as nitrogen and sulfur and stuff like that.
Well, if I can give another plug about Farming Connect services, so there is 8% funding towards nutrient management planning and soil testing. Yeah. So farmers like yourselves really need to make the most of that service that's available, and also to access specialist advice like Chris's expertise there. So a couple of questions really that's come through. How much tonnage of dry matter do you grow a year, just to give the audience, I guess, an idea of sort of level of grass you do grow? Yeah,
so we probably on average we grow around 13 tonne. There's some paddocks are poorer and some are better, obviously, but probably as an average it would be around that. So it's not bad. There's probably a little bit of improvement we can do. Well, there definitely is, but it's a fair amount of grass. The farm grows well. Yeah, we've corrected pHs a lot in the last 5-10 years. Really, we've spread a lot of lime and brought all pHs above 6. Whereas when I came back from university, probably pHs were down. We had some down at 5 and even below that almost. So I think that's helped a lot. It's probably lightened the farm up a bit as well. It makes it more free draining, easier to utilise the grass we grow. So yeah, it's definitely helped.
There's another question on mixed swards. The use of mixed swards is becoming more and more popular. Yeah. So I'm going to ask Chris and yourself that question really. So if you want to go first, so Chris can have a think about his answer in the meantime.
Yeah. So I've had a little play with them. Last year we reseeded a couple of acres with a 15 species herbal ley, which I then have only spread 30 kilos of N on last year and this year, and it's grown slightly less grass probably than a normal field, but actually the cows really like it, and it's probably actually when you work it out, it's actually probably quite viable. It's on a very dry bank, and it keeps growing quite well in drought, so there's definitely advantages there. I think at the moment the sort of conclusion from it is I think I'll focus on the grass and clover and just upping the clover percentage to feed the grass, and I think it's possibly, I'm not sure on the mixed swards whether there's a future fully for it, or whether we should just be concentrating on the legumes and trying to get the clovers to really feed the grass and feed the system instead of bringing in the artificial N.
Okay. So Chris, if you can sort of give your insights as well on mixed swards, can I also add a question as well to you, Chris, in terms of the best use of slurry? Perhaps on many farms that's an underutilised resource, so if we can just touch on that as well, please.
Okay, right. Yeah, we'll start with mixed swards. In my experience, certainly you start with a mixed sward, you're a multiple species sward, you can end up with multiple outcomes. Every field behaves differently. The goodies, be it chicory, plantain, whatever, are quite vulnerable, and a lot of them don't last enormously long. But having said that, the benefits they can provide in year 1, year 2, there's no doubt about it. They will increase mineral status of the herbage. They will survive both wet and dry conditions to some degree better than pure grass sward. Yeah, go and have a play. There's lots out there, and I'd urge everybody to go and try them. What I have my reservations are is trying to maintain these multi-species swards in high fertility situations. So where we've got lots of nitrogen going in the system and lots of P and K floating around, I don't give a lot of chance of some of the slurry management. When's the best it's little and often, and just storage is the key to it all. I know it comes back to it, and then everybody hates, it's a big expense, but unless you've got the storage to mean that you can hold on to stuff into March, you're not going to maximize the full nitrogen within our slurry. So if we can avoid October, November, December, January, that's when all my nitrogen disappears. If we can apply it March onwards, ideally dribble bars, trailing shoes, then at least we're getting a decent amount of that nitrogen back in the system. And it's not an easy situation for a lot of people with collecting a lot of rainwater. So again, it's about getting advice on how we limit the amount of slurry we're dealing with, and then being able to put it in the right place at the right time.
Great, thanks very much, Chris. Absolutely, making sure we use best use of the slurry is certainly good tips for a lot of farmers, and it's using that resource effectively is really important. We've got a question coming through. So you want to reduce the amount of nitrogen. How much have you used in the past, and why was it as high?
Yeah, so in the past we were quite heavily stocked. We didn't have as many acres as we do now. So we were running a lot of animals basically on a small acreage. So we were really trying to grow as much dry matter, as much grass dry matter as we possibly could. And so we were spreading sort of 300 kilos of N per hectare, just to really try and absolutely maximise what that land could do. Fortunately now we're actually in a situation where more land's come into the platform and come into the farm, so we've got a good opportunity now to probably reduce back that nitrogen a bit, and really just tinker with it and see what where the sweet spot is really, with having some nitrogen going in but not as much, and still growing almost as much grass, or if not as much, if that's possible, through the use of clovers and stuff. So yeah, I feel like the farm's in a good position actually now to really to go on and see what we can do. See maybe if we can reduce that 300 down to sort of 180 or less, or 150. We potentially there is potential for us to halve what we were putting in and still get a very similar outcome. So it'll be interesting to see.
It's quite ambitious targets really, and I think you've got hopefully the experience and know how to do it. So you've got the grazing platform to trial it on.
Yeah, that's it. And with the help of experts like Chris, hopefully there is scope to see what we can do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see Chris here soon during an open day. Once we're allowed to continue with open days, we actually can dig a hole and see what lies beneath, and also have a closer look at the herd here. I'm just going to touch on some of the other projects that we've got on some of our dairy farms, our demonstration dairy farms. So we've got 4 across Wales, one in Anglesey, one in Monmouth, one in just by Trelech, and here in Mountjoy. So we're looking at cow mobility and infrastructure at Greg Galway. We actually were meant to have an open day there in end of March, but the obvious stopped that. But we will be hosting an event there soon, and also there's an update on all of our events or all of our demo farms on our website. So we're continuing with the work. Fortunately, similar to Will, we've got really enthusiastic and passionate demonstration farmers that are willing to carry on with the work, sometimes with our support from a distance. So we can carry on with our work and we can convey that information. And we're also looking at cow fertility and grass and silage management at Nantglas near Trelech, and also increasing utilisation of grass from milk forage with an all-year-round system at Erw Fawr at Anglesey with Ceredig. So we've already had a webinar with Ceredig and Iwan Francis at Nantglas, so we'll make sure that we get those messages out there, and please do keep following us. So we're now going to have an update from Susie Morgan, the local development officer here in Pembrokeshire. So she's going to cover off some of the updates and the support services that's available from Farming Connect. So Susie, over to you.
Thank you, Dewi. As you've just touched upon, the corona pandemic has not stopped delivery here at Farming Connect. We are currently offering one-to-one surgeries, either digitally or over the phone, with one of our expert consultants tailored to your business. These are arranged within a couple of hours and usually delivered within 48 hours from the initial inquiry. A wide range of topics are offered, including accountancy, grassland, woodland, marketing and diversification, just to mention a few. Farming Connect advisory service, again touched upon in tonight's presentation. The nutrient management plans would fall into this category. So we're pleased that some consultants are now back on farm delivering these subject to Welsh Government guidelines. Via the advisory service, each business can access up to 4 instances of advice from one of the 8 Farming Connect approved companies, funded either 100% in a group scenario or 80% for one-to-one advice to a maximum of €1,500. As well as business advice, there are a range of technical topics that are also available, such as growing more grass, nutrition, heifer rearing, improving milk quality, the list goes on. Basically any eligible topic relevant to you or your group. Mentoring. This provides sector-specific experience relevant to your business. Each business can access up to 15 hours of fully funded, confidential and impartial farmer-to-farmer support and guidance. Animal health clinics. These have recently been reintroduced to Farming Connect due to their popularity. Up to £250 of funding towards sampling, testing and one-to-one advice from your local vet. Can include things such as blood testing for trace elements, yonis, scab, bull and rab fertility testing. Funded will be allocated on a first come, first served basis. However, the work must be completed within 30 days from the inquiry. I would like to end by showing you a short clip about Store for Sgiliau, our online portal that records all Farming Connect activity, and you can turn this into a very professional looking CV.
For future farmer members of Wales, we'd like to see ourselves as some of the pioneers of the industry, and farming needs to become a career, not just something you go into and you stay at that level all your life. And I think that's where the industry will be going, that career development will become very important. And to create a CV off the back of things you've done that's tailor-made for an application, for instance, if you can see all your achievements in one easy to access location, then you can pull your CV together accordingly.
Use of Slurry is an online facility for recording all continuous professional development, training and personal achievements. All Farming Connect activities are automatically recorded onto Use of Slurry, and you can upload your own personal achievements and records through MySpace. It's important that farmers keep themselves professional within the industry, and that they're able then to prove that the training that they have done and the time it's taken for them on their continuous professional development.
Through Farming Connect, I've learned a lot. E-learning has made a huge difference to me. It comes in, you think, I'll just go and sit on the computer, see if there's anything on there, and then hey, you click in, you think, it was as simple as that. So it's there at hand when you need it as well.
It's good to recap and refresh the memory. I was invited about a month ago to the workshop in Dolgellau Rugby Club, and I felt that it was a chance that I had to take, because there's always something to learn all the time. As a result of the workshop, I'm going to work more closely with my local vets. There's so much talk about the worm resistance and all that, so it's important that we get it right.
I work on the ICT programme. There are 3 different tiers to the programme. We do 6-week college courses, all 100% funded. We focus on using Word and Excel and creating emails, looking at social media to improve your business. Another tier of it is we do one-to-one on-farm tutoring, so whether you're having trouble with your printer, or if you want to help with just Excel, or you want to look at social media to improve your business, to sell your sheep, to sell your dogs. And then the 3rd tier is that we run lots of workshops. The workshops are on new technologies, also ways to improve your business using ICT.
We've got so many courses and opportunities within Farming Connect. Clover is one place that will record all of the activities that have been done, and it's easy access to download.
So we are 18 development officers across Wales and are here to help your business. Please do get in touch if you're interested in any of tonight's topics or any other matters. Thank you, Dewi.
Thanks, Susie. Thanks very much for that. I think you mentioned a lot of services that Farming Connect do have, so including the animal health surgeries, working with the local vets, clinics, technical advice and training, which I know, Will, you've benefited from quite a few of those services over the last few years.
No, it's true. Yeah, no, it's a great service. Yeah, for providing funding for all sorts of things, which are useful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to a close here at Mountjoy. The cows and the weather has performed really well, and fair play. Will is still in his shorts, although your knees are starting to turn purple. But no, that's all I have to say then, really, is to say thank you for everybody that's been able to join us this evening. Thanks very much for all our contributors that have joined from all over the country, and in particular thanks to Will and the team and family for hosting us. And it was not easy to set up, and we can be quite demanding, but also in working with a project, so it does take a fair bit to set up a project, and also, you know, it's not necessarily to the benefit of the host farm, it's for the benefits of the industry. So thank you very much for that.
No, thank you, Derry. No.
So yeah, that's it from us. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon. Diolch yn fawr.
See you.